Hey, everybody, this is Bryan from Red Fang, and I'm talking with Nate on the Vinyl Guide. We've got a new album, Arrows, that's going to be dropping in June of 2021. Get your copy now. You'll be happy you did.
Oh, well, thank you, Bryan. And hey, everyone, it's Nate here. Thank you so much for downloading this episode of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for vinyl record collectors and music nerds. And today we are announcing the long-awaited new album from Red Fang, Arrows. Now, Red Fang, as you know, is an extraordinary heavy rock band out of the Pacific Northwest. Some people call them stoner rock. Some people call them doom metal. I call them awesome. And up to now, Red Fang have had 4 studio albums. Their self-titled Red Fang album, Murder the Mountains, Whales and Leeches, and Only Ghosts. However, today, Red Fang are announcing they will increment that number to 5 with the release of Arrows, an LP they've had completed for nearly a year now, and were just about to release it when the pandemic struck. But the good news is that Arrows is finally coming out June 4th, 2021, and vinyl pre-orders are available right now at Relapse Records or relapse.com. Get in as soon as you can. Check out the Red Fang vinyl variations and bundles. Typically, they don't last long. You could also check out the title track of the LP Arrows on any streaming service. Just search for Red Fang and get ready to download the full album on June 4th. Now today, Bryan and I discuss a myriad of topics, the story of Arrows, the delay, the impact of 2020 on the band, and more. Plus, we have an extended version of this episode available only to show patrons at patreon.com/vinylguide. Head up there now. You'll help support this show. You'll also get access to all sorts of extended interviews, early and secret episodes, and heaps more. It's a huge help if you turn out to be a sponsor. Certainly appreciated. That's patreon.com/vinylguide, where you'll hear the rest of the show. And that's it for the upfronts. Let's talk about the story of Arrows with Bryan from Red Fang.
Hello.
Mr. Bryan.
Yes, is this Nate?
This is. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Sounds a bit like you're on the moon.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. I did not realize that you were calling from Australia. That's nice. Whereabouts are you?
Sydney.
Nice. I like that town.
Yeah, you guys have been down here a few times. Hoping to see you again very soon.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. We'll see.
We're already starting to have some live music here, so hopefully this may be one of the spots. I think this next summer, and when I mean summer, I mean January, December area. That's our summer.
Yep.
I think there's going to be a ton of touring bands here.
Well, you guys are well ahead of the curve as far as getting rid of this corona, so
yeah. Look,
that would make sense.
The first couple of months were, pretty heavy-handed in lockdowns, but everyone just kind of held their nose, took the medicine, and we're feeling the benefits of that now.
Oh, it's fantastic.
So as I understand it, the new album Arrows, and by the way, I've heard a preview of the album. I am absolutely loving it. I mean, banger song after banger. As I understand it, this album, which is coming out June 2021, was actually recorded pre-pandemic. Is that right?
That is correct. We finished it summer of 2019, and it was slated to come out May 2020. And then we're like, well, maybe we'll push it, and we'll push it. And then we just said, screw it. I mean, I think for some, for big bands, they can put out a record and just on the strength of their name or reputation, their album sales will be okay without support. But, we are still very much, a working band. So if we want our record to exist, we've got to be out there shoving it in people's faces. So it just didn't make sense for us to release a record. I mean, I'm proud of that record. So I wanted people to hear it. And I thought, well, I am chomping at the bit to have it out because like we're saying, it's been finished for going on 2 years now. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want to just have it put out and have it, fall by the wayside. So we're giving it its level, its best chance of being heard by the most people by waiting until we can actually go out and and support. However, it's coming out in June, and I'm not really sure of the state of touring even then. So maybe all this waiting was moot because we're still not going to be able to tour to support it. So I don't know. I mean, we've been talking to our management, our booking agents, and there's some interesting ideas being floated around, but it really is it's very much a wait and see, which is irritating to say the least.
Did you think it was just going to be a couple of months? We'll just push it out a little bit and we'll catch up towards the end of the year. Or was there the realization of, oh my God, this is going to be a prolonged holding of this album?
Well, I think probably in a rare instance of being overly optimistic, I guess to some degree I was caught by surprise. When the lockdown started here, it was in March, and I remember being at the bar and we're saying, all right, see you when I see you, and I was like, whatever, it'll be a week, maybe 2 weeks. No way did it occur to it even seem like a real thing that we would have a basically shut down economy, for a year. It was shocking. That's for sure. So yeah, I mean, I kept saying, oh yeah, we'll move it. And so we were sort of in no, we did not resign ourselves to saying, yeah, well, it's a year and a half. The world's taking a crap, or rock and roll's taking a crap for a year and a half. I didn't think that was the case, but apparently it is. And I think our current philosophy is, well, let's just go when it's go time. Go doing something now when there's all these provisions and anxieties. I think one of the worst nightmares I can imagine is being the cause of a spreading event. I don't want to put anyone in a situation where it's like, oh, well, I like that band. How dangerous could it be? And then they get sick, or someone in their family gets sick, and I am, in some way involved in someone else's catastrophe. That's not, what I got into playing music for,
In the touring industry now, is there COVID insurance? Is there some sort of protection for musicians who someone catches COVID at one of their shows?
Like liability insurance?
Something like that. I mean, but is COVID part of that?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's so new. I think you could probably ask someone who actually does it for a living, and they might say it's a question mark. I mean, there's, some of these, depending on the, venue, it can be millions of dollars in insurance are required to play some events. So, and I would think that COVID would fall into that umbrella. However, I would say, I mean, like I say, I don't want any part of this, but I would say litigation would be sticky, because to prove that this event was caused, not with malice, but, with neglect, that a neglect for the public's health, it would be, especially, I mean, obviously if we were going to go out and play any shows, we talked briefly about, and hopefully we're still discussing this, looking into playing outdoor venues this summer. I don't know if that idea is dead in the water or not, but if not, we, everybody in the band was excited about the idea of playing shows again, but we all wanted to make sure that, protocols were followed and that, everyone was going to be as safe as possible. And they assured us that, yeah, that, that's how it would be. And as far as domestic, live music, I think that, you're way more likely to have an outdoor event happen this summer than an indoor. I think that indoor shows are pretty much, sketchy at best for this year. So anyway, we just were assured that all the protocols would be covered and everything. And, it is about being safe.
How close did you come to announcing this album before the decision was made to hold off on that?
I would say we were probably a month out from announcing.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we were going to announce in April, and then it would have been out in. Well, no. I mean, honestly, we were talking about a May release, so it was imminent at that point. I think we pulled the plug as it got grim real fast. So the decision was made without much discussion. It was like, yeah, no, the world is taking a shit, and we're not gonna get involved right now.
Did you guys have tour merch printed up? Any vinyl made?
Yeah, it's all. Well, we didn't invest in. I mean, tour merch. We generally wait until we really try to have as little back stock as possible in our space because that's just basically money that mobs are eating. So we try to stay slim, and so we didn't go forward as far as printing textiles. But I believe the vinyl is done, and there's some really cool options. I think there's a liquid filled one, which I'm pretty excited about. And I know, yeah. As long as it doesn't ruin your record player, I'm cool with it.
Oh, that's interesting. So let's talk about that vinyl. I'm assuming there's a few splatters, probably some blobs. There's a liquid filled. What else can you share about that?
Yeah, I mean, there are some pretty cool new styles. I haven't actually looked at them in a while because, well, I'm not going to be able to look at them for real for a while. So, but yeah, I think that's the one I'm most excited about. I think the album art is like neon green and neon pink predominantly. And there's, I guess, different densities of goo in the record. So they sort of, do sort of a lava lamp type thing.
Wow.
And so I think that's the one I'm most excited about. But yeah, there's, Relapses, they're definitely vinyl junkies over there. So it's a playground for them making different styles of vinyl, which is great. I love it. It's like, let me have a copy. So
yeah. So Relapse typically does 100 clear units, and that's generally for band members and the close circle of the band. I'm assuming that that's also something they've already done. Perhaps you even have your clear vinyl of Arrows so far.
No, I haven't gotten shit.
What?
No, not yet. I mean, but that's fine. I know what the record sounds like. Although it would be really, really nice to hear it on the turntable.
Now, vinyl pre-orders, I think, start April 6th. Is that right?
I trust you. I'm just advocating for my band like crazy right now. No, that sounds right.
This would be the liquid filled and those sort of things will be available at the Relapse website. Yeah. Yes.
Be careful where you're looking for stuff because they're. I mean, it's not like we're Metallica or something where people are just coming out of the woodwork ripping them off. But there are. My mom has bought bootleg Red Fang merch before. I'm like, Ma, where'd you get that?
Mom, I could hook you up.
Yeah, we don't make Red Fang pillowcases. What are you doing?
So, in the past, you've had packages, and I seem to recall the Big Daddy pack, which was a special vinyl pressing.
The Bad Dad pads.
Yeah, a baby onesie, a 40-ounce beer cozy, a dad T-shirt. I thought that was fantastic. Any sort of merch packages like that for April 6th?
Yeah, that's kind of one of the things we're focusing on now. We are partnering with Psycho Las Vegas. It's a festival that happens annually. So they turned their attention, to other things because they had to put their festival on hold as well. So anyway, so we're doing a gambling pack is one, which I'm pretty excited about. It's going to have dice and commemorative coin in a nice package and playing cards featuring our faces. Ah! So the ace, king, queen, and jack will be members of the band, and then the jokers will be our front of house Adam Pike and our tour manager Chris Coyle. And they signed up on being jokers.
Okay, I thought there'd be a fight over who got to be the Joker.
Oh, no, well, I know, because the Joker, theoretically, if you're playing with wild cards, that's the most powerful card of the deck. So,
yeah,
as far as being the boss, you want to be the Joker.
Okay, so you got a gambling pack, and that's going to be available again. I'm assuming this is all through Relapse and available on the website.
Yeah. Okay. So that'll be a package. It'll probably be the deluxe version of vinyl, and then just a way for you to lose your money.
What role does vinyl play for a band like Red Fang? How important is vinyl?
These days, way more important than CDs are. CDs, obviously, generally people will buy them, put them on, put them in their computer if their computer even has a CD reader these days, and digitize it, and then they don't look at the CD again. Mm-hmm. It's easier on the pocketbook if that's all you want. However, why if since the artwork is so small on a CD, it's really not buying it for that. So, you might as well just download, just pay to have it downloaded if, and then you'll have your JPEG of the album art or whatever. But, definitely vinyl has seen a resurgence, definitely in the rock world, and I've always said, and I'm sure you agree with me, that it is just having a big piece of artwork and the physicality of it, just having, your needles running through a canyon of rock. It's cool. So we definitely, sell more vinyl than CDs by a long shot. And yeah, I think it's a much better, a keepsake for a concert you go to, or I still have albums from when I was in high school, they still play.
The lifespan of a CD, actually, we're starting to get to a point to where the first CDs that were made are starting to break down. So yeah, in terms of longevity,
you mean like the ones and zeros are falling off?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. They're all zeros now.
Oh man, I want my money back.
Yeah, a lot of those early CDs are starting to disintegrate. Vinyl is absolutely the format to get for longevity. Now, when you guys are touring, when a fan walks up to the merch booth, what items tend to help support the band the most? Is it vinyl, T-shirts, CDs? What helps the most?
It's definitely, textiles. As far as what puts gas in the gas tank is T-shirts. We sell koozies, things like that. The profit margin on CDs and LPs is not really high. I'm super excited when people want to support us and want to take our music home with them. But if I was just being a capitalist, I would say, yeah, I'll buy a T-shirt instead.
Okay. And that's a walking advertisement.
But like I say, I'm a big fan of vinyl, and if someone can take that home, I mean, if we're only, making a couple of bucks off it, it doesn't matter. I'm getting to be, an older man, but I still get excited when someone is excited about what we do. So, and I think the ultimate expression of that is wanting to actually take the music, not just a fashion statement, but
right.
But you really are a devotee of the music,
We'll be back after these messages.
Well, hey there, people. The Vinyl Guide today is brought to you by the new Groove Washer G3 Fluid. Yes, you heard right. Groove Washer has an even fancier record cleaning fluid for you record nerds they call the G3, as well as the GSR, Groove Washer Super Rinse Fluid. Of course, they have the traditional G2 fluid as well, and all these come in small quantities for record hobbyists, as well as large 32 and 64 ounce versions for hardcore record collectors and record stores. Go to groovewasher.com to learn more. Use discount code VINYLGUIDE10 to save when you check these out. That's the Groove Washer G2, G3, and GSR cleaning fluids available at groovewasher.com. Discount code VINYLGUIDE10. And we're also brought to you today by AudiofileUSA.com. Used records only in excellent and near mint shape. Over 42,000 titles to choose from at AudiofileUSA.com, and they are always restocking and finding more. Dig around the website, search by genre, record label, and artist, dig deep and find the deals, as well as sign up to be alerted when a new batch becomes available. That's AudiofileUSA.com. The best used records, the cleanest condition, all shipped directly to your front door. That's AudiofileUSA.com.
Now we return to the program, already in progress.
No limits.
You mentioned your record collection. What record changed you? What record changed your life?
I guess the heavy metal record that really changed or just really opened my eyes to the possibilities of rock music, getting out of the 80s hair explosion, which really broke my heart. I was like, what happened to all of my bands? Motley Crue went from, Shout at the Devil to like Theater of Pain. And it was just, Theater of Pain is, no shit. It was painful. What are you doing to me, guys? Just terrible. I mean, it's not even terrible. It was just, as an angry youth, I was so offended that, these ballads were just taking over all this space for what was mine as an expression of, teen angst. Mm-hmm. And it all kind of just felt really commercialized. It's like, oh, the ballads are what sells, so we're going to put 6 of them on the record, and there will be 2 hard rock songs that are worth a damn, and they're going to be buried somewhere in the middle of side 2. So when Ride the Lightning came out, I heard that, and I just kept playing For Whom the Bell Tolls over and over again. I couldn't even get through the record because that song blew me away so much. I just kept listening to it over and over again. I think that was really pivotal to me. I was like, man, these guys just don't give a shit. It is balls to the wall. It is fantastic. And you don't have to get, the curling iron out or whatever, take a shower to rock.
Yeah. I remember looking at the back of Ride the Lightning, I think Cliff Burton's jacket. It's like, I got a jacket like that. These people kind of look like me. I can identify with these people.
Oh yeah. They're very relatable dirtbags.
So a lot of that material is starting to come together now in box sets. I know all the Metallica albums have been released in box sets. Sabbath, now we're getting a lot of box sets, outtakes, those sort of things. Do you go for box sets of some of those records?
No, it's a little too much for me. Mm-hmm. I think it's just like it's almost like Gestalt. I prefer an album. Maybe 41, 42 minutes of music, the strongest songs, and put them that format. Maybe it's just because I grew up that way, but that's just. It's like, take it easy with the 3 LPs, it's like, yeah, I remember Tom Waits came out with a box set, he released basically 3 albums at once and you could buy them. It was 3 CDs and they were like, I don't know, 60 minutes of CD. And I was like, man, there's probably tons of good songs somewhere in here, but I don't have 4 hours to sit here and then I would basically have to say yay or nay and make my own album out of 3 CDs. I just don't think it's the best way to present music. I think you need to, as far as your best foot forward, and if people want to dig deeper, they can. We have additional songs that you can get if you buy our record and you like it and you want to hear what else maybe we were up to in the studio or in the process of demoing the song. That stuff's there, but I still think that, the standalone 1 LP is king.
Do you guys over-record and make outtakes or extra tracks for B-sides, or do you over-record and then cull the herd and no one hears the leftovers?
Well, everything we record is amazing, so there's no over-recording. I mean, we got some fantastic fart tracks. We got some plate reverb on there. Honestly, our songwriting is pretty painstaking. So in general, if we are shooting to have 11 songs on a record, we're more than happy to show up for recording with 14 songs in mind. And then we have a couple of, options like, well, how'd that turn out? We can pick and choose a few, but we're not really prolific. So no, unfortunately, that for better or worse, there's not a lot of cutting room floor.
Okay,
but that's you would think that it takes us about 2 years per record. You'd think there would be a ton of cutting room floor, but I think a lot of those ideas either end up in a Dropbox somewhere or just in the carpet at our practice space.
Well, it's all right to stay lean and mean. And this new album, again, Arrows, I think that is very much high speed, low drag. What's the first single that you guys are putting out there?
Arrows, the title track.
Okay. That one is certainly one that stuck out. But there's several other contenders. Have you guys played any of these songs live yet?
Yeah, we played Arrows for front of house Adam Pike, his 40th birthday. He recorded the first half of our first LP. Mm-hmm. So for his 40th birthday, we set up at a bar here in town and we played all the songs that he recorded with us, as well as Arrows. I think that was it as far as the new ones. And yeah, we played Too High a couple of times. We were getting, if we can, we'll play a working version of a song that before we record it, just to, put it up the flagpole and see salute. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we played, I would I think probably the maximum amount of songs we played live from that album are probably 4, maybe less.
Okay.
But it's fun, and I think we played Too High, and people were dancing. So I was like, okay, that's good. That's a good sign.
Were you guys able to practice at all through the pandemic?
No, we were not. We only practiced maybe once in 2020.
Okay.
It was a bummer, man.
Now, with Arrows, is there a concept for Arrows?
No, we're not a concept band. We, I think that we get into sort of a mode, or I think that, I'll start having sort of leaning one stylistic way or another, and I'll bring that. But I think everyone has their own, headspace they're in. And so I think that we sort of, our albums coalesce that way. It's like, well, where we're all meeting these days, And so like this new album, it's pretty dark, from a mood perspective, which I'm happy about. I mean, it's definitely not, whistle while you work, but I think it has impact. I'm real proud of it, but yeah, it's not like we're like, all right, we're going to do an album. It's going to be all upbeat and it's going to be,
right.
In this scale or something. We don't ever, it's just like, I got a riff. Oh, cool. Or that's terrible. I mean, it's what we all agree on.
But when you look back at something like, say, Murder the Mountains, and then you listen to it, you hear the lyrics, and I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can imagine you'd be thinking, okay, that's where we were at the time. And I could see the influence of this activity that was happening in, 2011 or whatever, influencing this lyric. Are you able to look back at your past albums and kind of recognize where you guys were at as a band or as songwriting individuals?
Yeah, for sure. There's no question about it. There's backstories to a lot of our songs, some of which I don't care to share. So yeah, I mean, I think some of the lyrics on the new album are a real, what I hope to be a headstone on some of my darker moments. To be perfectly honest, I was drinking myself stupid during the writing of this newest album, and I was just so sad. And I was mad about it. I was mad at myself, really, for where I'd let myself get to. And so at least I had songwriting as sort of an outlet. So listening back to them, it sort of makes me cringe a little bit, except that, the positive spin I put on it is that, I think everyone has dark periods in their lives. And I think that sharing your experience, in whatever, sort of vague way, I mean, the feelings or whatever, and putting that out in the world, I think is good because people realize they're not alone,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that, I know, like Hank is Dead is about the day that Aaron's cat died, it's not exactly something you want to ponder all the time, but I mean, as far as like road markers, it's like, yeah, that his cat died, and there you go.
So it sounds like Arrows was written at a perhaps difficult time, but at least now you can look back and recognize that, and hopefully recognize the progress you've made since then. You're in a different place.
Yeah, well, like I say, I'm just speaking for myself. I mean, honestly, I'm being honest for better or worse. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I've come through the woods quite a bit. I'm probably annoyingly optimistic these days. So, I'll try to reel that in too.
Well, that's quite a feat considering the year we've all just been through.
Well, just being through it, and in America, I mean, having a different administration, I don't want to wade into politics, but it just felt like our previous administration really did not have the public interest in mind. And, and I felt, and that was heartbreaking to me. I just felt like, well, we're all in it for ourselves, it's just, if you die, I don't care. It just seemed like the prevailing attitude. And I was like, what is happening? Yeah, that was just so agonizing. And I know that some countries are still going through that. The Brazilian leader is still just laughing at the idea that protecting the public from a deadly disease is, a deadly virus is acceptable. What's the mindset there? Anyway, but so I think that's a lot of the optimism I have is I feel like that we have a steadier hand on the wheel here. And, vaccinations are happening at a faster rate than predicted. So it just seems like normalcy, whatever that new version will be, I think will be looking real good by 2022. So
yeah.
Anyway, I mean, sure, I'd love it to be today, but it just seems like the road ahead is clearing up. It's not like we don't have speed bumps, but it definitely seems like we have a map now. That's a shocker.
Well, one thing that has really changed, certainly in the last couple decades, is the division of people and political ideologies. And back in my day, back when I was young, no one really gave too much of a shit about it, or everyone was against Reagan. It was very clear, especially when you went to shows. But now, at least from my perspective, in speaking with a lot of people from especially the U.S., but other parts of the world, one of their first probes is, what side are you on? Where do you fall in that political spectrum? For an artist, it must be very difficult because you start to see your audience segment themselves. How do you manage that?
I think we really try to do our best. As a band, we are very apolitical. I think everyone has the right to their own opinion, whether I agree with it or not, so we really try to stay out of that. I mean, we're musicians. We're not social scientists or politically, educated. I mean, we have our opinions certainly, but we don't use the band as a platform for that. We have waded into, there are some things that we just couldn't stand by and be okay with, the Black Lives Matter movement that happened this summer. It really, I think that the communication level in the United States is at an all-time low. So it's like you say, it's like you take sides. It's either you're right or left, and there's no meeting in the middle, and no one wants to talk about it. It turns into a fuck you match immediately. So, but in that case, it's just ridiculous. The systemic racism in this country is so glaring, and that we as a person with white privilege, I just can't be like, yeah, well, I mean, I just can't go to sleep at night thinking that I didn't at least try to do something. So we raised some money for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, which didn't have anything to do with protests or any kind of street movement. This was just basically about getting equal rights for everyone. And it seemed like a good cause. And we did. We raised a couple of $1,000s, and, I felt good about that. But, man, we really did. We got trolled really bad. People were super offended, and it's because we're just not communicating, I mean, my philosophy was, look, human rights, man. It's like if a person gets pulled over by a cop and they're black, they should get treated just as shitty or just as good as a person who gets pulled over for the same reason if they're white. But that's just not the case in this country. And so we had, but people just felt like, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to see the other side, but I think people think that they're, blue lives matter. It's like, certainly blue lives matter. I don't want the, I respect, law enforcement, it's just such a complex issue. But for us, it was pretty cut and dried. It was like, look, man, we're talking about human rights. This is not a political issue. This is about the color of your skin or your sexual orientation being removed from the table as far as a way you're treated as a human being. We're freaking human beings. And if you can't see that, I'd rather you didn't come to our show. If you think that, gay people are less than you are because of where you put your dick or what you let in your vagina, well, then don't come to our show. I mean, honestly, it's just, it's just, you're a monster. Get out of here.
Take that money you would have spent at the show and spend it on therapy.
Yeah, or exactly. Yeah, man, it's just crazy. So anyway, I mean, at the risk of alienating some racists out there, stay home,
Yeah, it's just the inability to be able to even have that level of conversation. And I'd imagine again,
and that's the thing that was frustrating is that it's so fundamental. It's not about one person or one movement or we're talking about just basic human rights for every person, and that's it. Have people judged on their merits, not on the color of their skin or their sexual orientation. That's so simple. I feel like it should be taught in elementary school. It should be taught in preschool, and yet it just doesn't seem to sink in. It's like, people get there seems to be, especially in America, it does seem like there's a large amount of people that think that by giving equal rights to groups of people that don't align with your group, that you are somehow losing rights. Mm-hmm. It's not like there's a finite amount of human rights to go around. And if white people let black people have human rights, then they're going to have less. It's like, no, man. It's just like, we're all having a party, and I think everyone should be invited. That's all I'm saying. But, but people are just so mad about it. It's like, dude, pump the brakes. How much could you hate a stranger? It's crazy.
Yeah. I think back in my life, the times that I've gotten in trouble or a brush with the law, never anything serious, but a brush with the law, it would have been so different if I looked different. Every day it's, there by the grace of God go I.
Yeah, man, I think that's a hard thing for people to do. And, I mean, myself included, I'm just as fallible as the next person, but putting yourself in someone else's shoes is really challenging. Mm-hmm. It's easy to judge someone in someone else's shoes, say, oh, those shoes are ugly. But to imagine what it's like to wear them, it's a skill that we all need to relearn.
The one thing that brings me peace when I think about this is that somewhere out there's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet. And that's when we're all going to be equal again.
Yeah, well, it doesn't care. It doesn't care what neighborhood you live in. It's just going to kill you all.
What did Bill Hicks say? We're a virus with shoes.
Right. Bill Hicks.
Saint Bill. So real quick, back to Arrows. You mentioned the album cover. Very different from the rest of the Red Fang art. Where did that imagery come from?
Geez, it was so long ago that we had the discussions about it. I think we just really wanted something that would pop, I mean, I think from a, just a visual aspect, we really wanted a striking thing. And we don't want to get, we don't, I loved Eddie from Iron Maiden, I mean, I think it's fantastic, but we just didn't want to be a band that has, Chompy, we call the skull. We don't want, oh, now he's in a leisure suit. Oh, now he's wearing a sombrero. You know what I mean? We're not doing that, so anyway, so we sort of trusted Ori and Landau did the design and designs for it. And I just think they're really striking. And yeah, like there's a cat being hit by lightning, standing over a coffin, just these really striking, iconic images. And I think they're, to me, they're intriguing and they're thought provoking without really, beating you over the head with any kind of message. We're not really a message band.
Yeah, well, it's certainly artwork that will jump out from the record racks. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, if you're carrying it home, you're not going to get hit by a car.
Yeah, attach those to your bicycle. You'll be safe. And
exactly.
I like the fact that you've named him Chompy.
Yeah, I don't know where we came up with that, but yeah,
Yeah. Do you see a lot of Chompy tattoos from your fan base?
Yes, we do, which is great. And what I like to say about it is like, well, I'm like, well, what happens if we put out an all, Loot and Zither album, and everyone's like, oh God, what happened? Red Fang's terrible. And yet they have this tattoo, but I'm like, well, they don't have to tell people that it's a band. They can just say it's a cool skull.
Yeah.
I think it stands on its own. I mean, I have one. So if I'm kicked out of the band, I'm not going to go cover it up. I'm like, nah, it's a cool skull.
What animal is it?
It's a saber-toothed tiger, I believe.
Is it? Okay.
I don't know. God, if I get that wrong, Jesus. Here's a really embarrassing story for you. Oh man. Okay, I'll tell you. Anyway, whatever. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's just between us.
So we were going over like t-shirt designs maybe 4 years ago on tour, and we were using the skull graphic and doing things, and somehow it came up. I was like, well, how come there's only a red dot in one of its eyes? This is so embarrassing. Anyway, they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, there's only the red dot in his left eye. What about his right eye? They're like, no, man, that's his nose. And I was like, what? So, forever, I didn't say anything, but I was like, he just kind of has a sloped face, don't you think? And I just thought that he kind of was like his like, I mean, this is awful, but like he had a stroke or something, and his left side of his face is kind of sagging. Just if next time you look at it, be like, imagine if you were dumb enough to think that his nose was his eye and what that looked like.
Well, you're no anthropologist. Let's be clear, but I like Chompy. Does Chompy have a rest of the body? Or is it always just the head?
Just the head. However, we are working on a Dungeons and Dragons module where I believe part of the storyline is finding Chompy's body. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. I really hope it does.
Chompy would have been a great Joker for that card deck.
He's on the back of the card.
All right. Okay.
He's on every card. So, I mean, he's the star of the show.
Very good. All right, Bryan, I'm getting ready to wrap it up. Any more vinyl stuff you want to talk about, especially for Arrows?
No, except that I'm excited for it. And if you're a vinyl collector, there's going to be just a slew of different styles.
Yeah.
I don't know how many of the liquid one they're going to put out, but if I was a vinyl person who also happened to care about Red Fang, I would definitely try to get one of those, because I think that'll be limited for sure.
All right, Bryan, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. And again, very excited to get a copy of Arrows on vinyl. You mentioned the liquid-filled vinyl, which I imagine will probably only be, I'd say probably 50 or 100 units. Those are really hard to make. So I'm sure that's going to be very limited. Up on relapse.com. Go up there on April 6th. Everyone who's listening, go to Relapse Records April 6th. You could pre-order the new Red Fang album, Arrows. Sounds like there's going to be splatters and all sorts of really cool pressings, limited pressings. What's interesting about Red Fang is also all the earliest pressings seem to completely skyrocket in value. There's like 100 or 200 of these things available, so if you get in early, you can get something that is not only great on the turntable, fantastic to listen to, but also a very solid investment. That's relapse.com. Again, Bryan, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we hope to see you out on tour soon.
All right. Great talking to you.
All right, there he is, Bryan of Red Fang. And don't forget, we've got an extended version of this interview available only to our Patreon community, patreon.com/vinyl guide. Go up there now, subscribe, help out the show, help keep us going, help buy us a few burritos each month. And of course, we'll keep you supplied with extended interviews, secret episodes, early access to episodes, and heaps more. That's patreon.com/vinyl guide. And that is it for this week's episode. Thanks again for tuning in. Please share these episodes on your social media, Facebook, Instagram, tweet them out on Twitter. That's always a huge help. And of course, leaving us positive reviews on iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you get these podcasts. Log in, give us 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10 stars, whatever. Say something nice, make us blush, and that is always appreciated. We'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Thanks again. Cheers.
That's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. Send your thoughts to Nate at thevinylguide.com or follow or tag us on Instagram at Vinyl Guide. Until next time, keep spinning.